I feel alive. I know inside that you would take it all away. I know the truth. I see through the lies, and I won't let you win again.
You ready, Kuhn?
Yes.
Okay. Guys, welcome to the third episode of the Faithful Chat podcast. Honestly, these episodes just keep getting better and better. Today, we have not just a special guest, but a very special friend in my heart. We went to JP together, and he's just gone on to accomplish absolutely astounding things after school, and you're going to hear about it more today. But Rynhardt Kuhn, my brother,
Thank you.
thank you for coming here, boy. So yeah, Ray, obviously, for those that don't know, Rynhardt Kuhn is a commentator for the SABC. He's also currently studying an honors degree at Wits in journalism. And there's going to be a lot of interesting questions here today. And the first one, Razor, what was your introduction into commentary? Because at JP, obviously, you never really had a passion for commentary. There was a lot of passion for sport, but not so much commentary. So what was your introduction into commentary, and what was your first commentary game like? And what did it feel like being on the mic for the first time?
December of 2021, myself and Tandu, another man you know quite well,
Of course.
we attended a res rugby match just for the sole purpose of enjoying it as a spectator, you know. And then we noticed the local streaming company that was set up there, and the thought emerged that maybe, you know, we can approach this company and we can tell them this and we can commentate for you. And thinking back on it now, it was a life-changing decision. And I'm glad we decided to approach this little streaming company. Luckily, they said yes to us.
Yeah.
And then we commentated those res rugby matches for a few weeks, joined the setup of this local streaming company permanently.
Yes.
And then for some strange reason, we were demoted to cameraman.
Okay.
Which was quite a learning experience.
Yeah.
Because you get to understand the whole production process.
Yes.
And then as soon as we were demoted to cameraman, I realized that I needed to make a switch. And I joined Supersport Schools, where I also learned a lot and grew a lot in terms of broadcasting. And then I was lucky enough to be approached by the public broadcaster.
So in my intro, I said you didn't have a passion for commentary. That was actually a lie, because we actually went on a cricket tour to Durban. Do you remember
I'll
this?
never forget it.
So this was the first time Rynhardt Kuhn commentated, and I don't know who did we play against?
It was Glenwood versus
Yes, it was Glenwood versus JP, and they needed a commentator.
Yes.
And me and Ray, I went out. I didn't bat. I was number 11, so I had lots of time. So I was
think
like,
it was number 10.
number 10. So I put my hand up. Rynhardt Kuhn's like, this could be sick. So we obviously commentated our team, and that was the first time like I realized how hard commentating actually is. It's actually really hard, because you have to almost describe what's happening and what you're seeing to those listening. And I'll never forget how natural you were on the mic. And I was like, Rynhardt Kuhn has a bit of a calling for this. So it's crazy how things work out. And like you said, you didn't have a plan when you left school. It just sometimes your passion finds you, I guess. And it's really beautiful. So was it Buccaneers, the club? What was the rugby club that
Harlequins Rugby Club.
Harlequins Rugby Club.
Yeah.
And I still remember you oaks put on your status, and I had a bit of a giggle. And then I listened to it, and I'm like, this is actually really good. These oaks are very passionate about this.
Because remember, Chad, at that point, we were commentating to about 10, maybe 20 people online.
Yes.
And still we were filled with
passion.
Pure passion.
100%. Yeah. And sometimes you can just hear it in someone's voice when they're just so keen. And like I said, sometimes your passion finds you. But how did it feel, Rynhardt Kuhn, commentating those first games? Was it a natural thing? Did it feel a bit like, you have to grow into this role? Or did you just blossom straight in from the start? You said you went as a cameraman. When you were as a cameraman, did you miss the commentary? How did it all begin in terms of the feelings and whatnot?
With regards to the cameraman thing, I was never intended to do that.
Fair enough.
But from the outside, you don't really realize how challenging and how intricate it actually is. Like you were saying, it's tremendously difficult to narrate something that's unfolding in front of your very eyes.
Yes. And you have
be
to do
on
it in real time.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's difficult, but you get used to it.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we managed to do. We grew very quickly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you'd say that first game, it just, you felt like you were in the right place and it felt natural to you. And then obviously the more it happened, you just blossomed those skills. And
Chad, there's no better feeling when a game is at fever pitch. Nothing else in the world matters. You feel as if you are one of the players on the pitch.
yeah,
The feeling is indescribable.
it's awesome. So you mentioned you had a stint with Supersport Schools.
Mm.
What was your introduction into the SABC where you currently are?
So while I was still commentating on schoolboy rugby, which was a lot of fun, I was approached to do an audition for the SABC because they were in search of a English commentator. And at that point, I didn't commentate on any football. I solely focused on rugby.
Rugby.
So that was very new, very different. But once they heard my interview, they liked my sound. And I also quickly realized, listen, this is a much bigger platform.
Yeah.
It's an opportunity to grow. It's a no-brainer.
So for those that don't know, you left JP and we were all studying accounting and law and whatnot. And
Yeah.
Ray's like, I want to study politics. And that was like a massive shock for me because Rynhardt Kuhn, in our 5 years, I never heard you speak about politics once. So when did you realize that? I know you do have passion for political commentary and whatnot, and we'll get into that later. But when did you realize that commentary and journalism, what you're currently studying now at Wits, was your passion? That was your path.
With regards to the politics thing, I think my curiosity in that domain grew in 2016, or it was ignited in 2016 with the US election, and I think the year thereafter,
With
the Brexit
Donald Trump,
drama.
Hillary Clinton.
Yes. So that's when I really started to find politics fascinating.
Yes.
Although I didn't speak much about it.
Yeah.
And then I think commentary is a form of journalism with a
100%.
slight creative twist.
Yeah.
And it's nice to just be able to tell real life stories in a bit of a creative, fantastical way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. So you've commentated many games, some big ones. What has been the biggest game you've commentated, just in terms of spectacle, in terms of how many people have watched, and how did you feel before that game?
So I was lucky enough to do 2 Soweto derbies, which
Yes.
were huge. It's one of the biggest club matches on the African continent.
100%.
And then I think once you watch a Pirates versus Kaizer Chiefs game, you realize how personal and how tribalistic football is on the African continent.
Yeah.
More so than what happens in Europe.
For real?
Yes.
Because we obviously know there's so much happening in Europe and people are very, like you said, tribalistic and it's their club. And, but you say the same thing happens in South Africa.
So these players come from the streets.
Yeah.
They've aspired their whole lives to represent Kaizer Chiefs or Orlando Pirates in what is a match that is watched by millions of people.
Yeah.
No,
100%.
And I've also been lucky enough to do some CAF Champions League games.
Yeah. So give some fixtures that you've commentated in CAF.
So the biggest one, or the biggest rivalry currently
Yes.
on African soil is Mamelodi Sundowns and Al Ahly of Egypt.
Okay.
It's, if I can liken it to something or a rivalry in Europe, it would be a Manchester City and a Real Madrid, just like we witnessed the other day.
Okay. So not necessarily a local derby, but it's massive.
Yes, it is huge. It is huge. And then besides the men's football, some ladies football too. That's definitely on the rise.
Yeah.
After Banyana's success.
100%.
At the World Cup.
Yeah. 100%. And you mentioned that like those early games, right? There were a few listeners. But what I'm curious about, how does the commentary change for you when there's a stadium full of people as opposed to an empty stadium? Does that have an effect on you personally?
No. It shouldn't have an effect, Jack.
Yeah.
It really shouldn't have an effect. Whether you're talking to 5 people or 500,000 people, you are describing the game as best as you possibly can. You're not trying to steal the limelight from the players.
Yeah.
You're trying to add in an additional layer to make the fixture, the occasion a little bit more tasty.
Yeah. 100%. And like, how did you feel, Reza Kun? Because I know you said like this doesn't matter how many people are listening, you need to feel the same way. I guess that's part of being professional. But what were those nerves like for those first big games where you're like, this is it now, this is my chance to shine, I either make it or break it? Did you have feelings like that, or were you just composed?
Of course. You can't help but feel anxious
Yeah.
before a major game, especially the week leading up to that big fixture.
Yes.
My producer told me the week before I think it was a Kaizer Chiefs Mamelodi Sundowns game.
Yeah.
And it was the first big match of the season. I think it was in the 2022-2023 season.
Okay, so recent.
Yes. And their major concern was this white boy is speaking to an audience, a black majority audience.
Yeah.
PSL is played by a majority of black players.
100%, yeah.
So the names were a huge issue.
Yeah, and the pronunciation.
Yes. And that especially in the beginning, it was a major challenge for me as an Afrikaans boy, learning all the clicks and
I'm sure that like viewers would get offended naturally if you don't pronounce it. So Rynhardt Kuhn, how did you go about, how much time, and this is something that's big, how much time went into that? Like how much time goes behind the scenes into these things? Because obviously when you're listening, Peter Jury, I think his name is,
Yes.
the one and only.
Yes.
He had this famous interview where he whips out this notebook, and there's so many notes that he has for the game. It's like 10 pages of notes. How much of that goes into commentary? How much happens behind the scenes?
A tremendous amount of work. People don't think so.
No, you don't.
But there definitely is. So, for instance, with regards to football, there's 22 players on the field, 35 people associated with these two teams on the field, and it's your responsibility to know each and every single one of their individual stories.
Yeah, not just their names, their stories.
Yeah. And in these big matches, usually you tend to find out that the big sides tend to cancel one another out.
Yeah.
The quality is matched. So you have to have background info.
Yeah. And I'm sure like with most things in life, the more prepared you are, the easier it is when it comes time to perform. 100%, right? Because you have more things.
Broadcaster that doesn't prepare is no broadcaster at all. Chad.
Yeah.
So preparation is
everything.
Is key. And you try to prepare for all eventualities in a game of football.
Yeah.
But there's just certain things that you can't prepare for.
Yeah, 100%. So Kuhn, you have commentated some crazy moments. Just from what I've watched, there's been some good things from high school rugby to, like you said, Mamelodi Sundowns, Kaizer Chiefs, these massive international games in CAF. What has been the one moment that you've commentated, if there is one that sticks out to you, where you've been like, holy smokes, I can't believe I'm the one commentating this. This is insane.
Can I take a sip of Red Bull?
Of course.
Before we continue.
It's a big answer.
So I've witnessed underdog triumphs, late dramatic winners, games that have gone into penalty shootouts, dramatic cup finals, you name it. But the one story that sticks out is Côte d'Ivoire's AFCON title capture this year. And the manner, Chad, in which they did it, it was just unbelievable. They lost 2 of their 3 group matches. So I think they finished with 3 points from the group stage. And
so just complete underdogs.
Yes, in their own tournament. So it was their home tournament.
It was their home tournament.
Yes. So then once they lost that final group match by 4-0, many people thought that's it, they're out, you know. So the federation took the decision to sack the manager. But then
during the tournament?
During the AFCON tournament. But they thought they were heading out.
What?
But things changed, and so they sacked the coach, and then they realized that no, we can progress into the knockouts as the worst third place team in the tournament. So they snuck through into the knockouts basically.
What?
So then the assistant manager needed to step up to the plate, a former player himself, and guess who they faced in the quarterfinals? Senegal.
And that's no easy opponent.
Defending champions, best team on the continent, and Côte d'Ivoire managed to beat them in the quarterfinals. Remember, they were supposed to go out.
What?
Beat Mali in the semi-finals, and then, of course, did what South Africa couldn't do, and beat Nigeria in the final to win the Africa Cup of Nations.
What were the scenes like? after that,
It
because
was
I think
incredible.
what people don't realize is the pressure playing at home in your own tournament and
Yes.
having such a terrible start. There
Yes.
must have been a lot of
Yes,
backlash,
yes, yes, yes.
and they overcame that. So, what could you remember the scenes after the game and like just the celebrations that they felt? And
I remember the emotions of both the players and the fans after they were thumped by Equatorial Guinea, I think, by 4 goals to 0 in that last group
yeah,
match.
yeah,
And when they beat Mali, no, actually, when they beat Senegal, then you realize, listen, they can really go all the way.
yeah, yeah.
And I'm sure you've heard about the story of Sebastian Haller,
I haven't.
the player that had or suffered through testicular cancer, but I think he defeated cancer.
What?
So he came back, and this was his first real return into the Ivory Coast national team. And he scored a
What?
few very important goals towards the latter
And this
stage.
is post cancer, and,
Yeah,
he goes on to win the
yeah,
tournament with his
yeah,
team. And
yeah,
what
yeah,
the heck? That is crazy. Rynhardt
yeah.
Kuhn.
So it's
No
not
wonder
s-
you took a sip of Red Bull when you were telling me that.
Yeah.
That is crazy. So you've commentated so many sports, right?
Mm.
You start off in rugby and you've branched off into many other things. But what has been the best sport in your mind to commentate, like, and why?
Mm.
And then I have a follow-up question, but answer that one first.
So I can't decide between football and fighting, boxing or MMA.
Yeah.
So a football match is akin to a chess match.
Yes.
The boxing and MMA is probably the most unpredictable sport currently in existence. So I can't really
100%.
pick a winner between the two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. And what is the one sport that, like, if you had to commentate it for the rest of your life, there is only one sport, what would you pick and why?
Football.
Football.
It's my first love. Really is my
100%.
first
And
love.
I think you must have so much respect for the intricacies that go into a football game because you've watched more than the average person.
Yeah,
And not
yeah.
just that, but you've had to not just watch, but commentate, like you say, live, what's happening. And you must have this appreciation for football. Yeah.
So there's subplots at play in a football match. It's not as simple as one team taking on another. There's many dynamics involved. Like I said, it's a chess match.
Yeah. Can I ask you something? What do you think is the difference, right? And you said you started off with school sports and you've transitioned into these bigger games, right? What in your mind? We obviously had Matthew Kutsia, who was a phenomenal guest, and he's playing
What a fly-off.
Hafiz today. What a man! What a man!
Yeah.
So they're playing Hafiz today, so I pray that they get the victory and make history. But what in your mind separates those high school games where there's so much passion, right? You've been not just on the field, you've been in the stands and you've shouted these war cries and there's so much passion compared to these international fixtures where you may say there's less on the line because it's not your school, but it is your club or your country. So what would you say commentating wise is the difference between these two levels?
To state the obvious, preparation is a little bit different.
Yeah.
If you are involved in a broadcast of those big matches, you need to be accurate and you need to be crisp.
Yeah.
But with regards to the players, I think that's where they start to learn, listen, I need to be willing to die for this badge on my chest, even if it is for my local high school.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's when that feeling of
shift.
pure passion is born.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think my opinion means nothing. I think you can agree with me, but I think that's when you see these players that step above because they're tracking back in the football game. They're just risking everything, life and limb, not just for themselves, but for that crest on there. And I think that's even more heightened in high school because, Ray, like high school rugby, it's like everything. It determines. So yeah, 100, great answer. We mentioned that you have an interest in politics. It's undeniable. As subtle as it was in high school, it is undeniable. You clearly have a very big interest in politics. So I want to know personally, and I've asked you this question a few times, do you have aspirations that exceed sporting commentary? Do you have aspirations that exceed the field?
I do. Career as a political commentator always interested me.
Yeah.
But then again, these days, I think all of us are social and political commentators.
True.
But Chad, that is also a game. Politics is a game just as much as football and cricket is, and it's extremely interesting.
So I have to ask you, we didn't prepare for this, but I may as well ask you,
Mm.
what are your
Mm.
thoughts with elections coming
Mm.
right around the corner
Mm.
and the country, some would say, in turmoil? I don't necessarily agree with that, but it is perceived that way.
Mm.
What are your thoughts on the upcoming elections, and what in your mind, what is so important about these elections, and what separates them from elections prior?
It's a major year for elections worldwide. I think
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
us.
Internationally.
Russia have had theirs.
Elections.
Yeah. India, the UK,
Yeah. The
obviously
US,
America.
November,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
But it's said to be a turning point
Yeah.
in South Africa's history.
Yeah.
And I heard something the other day that said the sign of a healthy democracy is a constant change
In government.
in government.
Yeah.
So perhaps it might be the right time. And a lot of polls have suggested that the ANC will fall to the low 40s,
Yeah.
which obviously has been well documented already. We will, in all likelihood, enter a coalition government.
Yeah.
Do I think it'll be beneficial to South Africa? Yes, if it's run properly.
Yeah.
But all of the examples we've been given in local municipalities and councils, you can't help but worry
Yeah.
just a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's interesting times.
It is interesting times. And like you said, I love what you said about a healthy democracy. And I feel like in order to be your best, you have to be on your toes, and you
Yeah.
have to know that your competitors are right behind you.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't feel like our current government has felt that way in a very long time. So it's
No.
interesting times, as you said. Rynhardt Kuhn, when you left Jeppy,
Mm.
we had a group known as the Wolf Pack.
We did. We did.
And I was the only one who, out of the Wolf, oh no, we had Brendan as well.
Mm.
And Rowan, so I'm actually lying. But out of the Wolf Pack, I was one of the few that went to Wits. Majority of you boys went to Pretoria, and obviously what a decision that was, because you wouldn't be doing what you're doing if it were not for that.
No.
But one of the highlights of my year last year was talking to you, and you said to me, you phoned me up and you're like, no, Chad, I'm actually studying at Wits next year. I'm doing my honors degree in journalism.
Yeah.
So how did that come about? What put you into this degree, and why are you studying what you study?
So I heard about this rather unique degree from some of my colleagues at the SABC. A lot of current practicing journalists have gone through that degree, and I've met some intelligent, insightful people there, and I think it'll open up a few more opportunities. I guess you gain credibility through either experience or qualification, and that's what I'm hoping that this degree will do for me.
Bridge that gap.
Yeah.
Because at our age, it's hard to have experience. You know what I'm saying? It has to come along. So if you qualify, then
How many young people are jobless?
Scary times. And what's more scary is how many qualified people are jobless. You have to be so careful in what you're studying, because just because you have a degree, especially in our country, doesn't mean you're set for anything. So awesome answer. So Ray, I have to ask you, you obviously see Conor McGregor everywhere. My two posters.
And set to fight?
It's big. So okay, I have to ask you, McGregor or Chandler?
I think... No, I don't think. I know. Michael Chandler should beat Conor McGregor.
Yes, I feel the same
just
way.
because he's been craving the fight more than McGregor has.
Yeah. And it's been in preparation for close to, like, I think over 18 months now, because it was announced, and they had the, the Ultimate Fighter, you know, that competition. And obviously there were coaches, and then it just went silent, and Conor McGregor's like, nah, I'm going to release a movie in between. So, okay, I have to ask you. You said Chandler. Give me a round and give me how.
Let me just play devil's advocate for a second.
You have to, okay?
Michael Chandler does tend to be a eager eagle.
Yeah.
And which is perfect for Conor McGregor.
Yes.
Counter striker. So there is definitely a path for a McGregor victory. However, I think Chandler just wants it more.
Yeah.
Is it a 3-round fight?
5-round fight.
5-round fight.
5-round fight, yeah.
The longer it goes on.
And it's on International Fight Week, so it's a very big. Yeah. But do you think the 5-round, who does that benefit? And do you think it's even going to go the distance?
No, it won't go past the
I
third
also
round.
don't think so.
No. You asked what round? I think round number 3.
And obviously TKO then.
Yes.
My boy McGregor on the floor yet again. I hope that
Let's hope
doesn't
he doesn't
happen.
break a bone this time.
That was sad, right?
Yeah.
People don't understand my passion for the soap. Like
Yeah.
2 memories that stick out for me, or 3 actually.
Mm.
McGregor,
Mhm.
Mayweather,
Mhm.
2017,
Mm.
2017, grade 9.
Mm.
Rynhardt Kuhn. We were obviously in hostel.
Yes.
And can you remember the buzz
Yeah.
in the hostel itself? Like
Yeah.
I feel like that was the only thing we talked about around that
Mm.
time. And one of my favorite memories from hostel was like when it's lights out and the lights off.
Mhm.
That's when the banter really starts, you know.
Yeah.
And I feel like we were discussing that part so many nights. So that's an awesome memory.
Yeah.
The second one, I was at Drosty and McGregor knocked out Cowboy Cerrone.
With his, he was setting it up with his shoulder.
He set it up with the shoulder,
Yes.
and then he came with this, Rynhardt Kuhn, this kick that, and it's like, it was funny because Cerrone had the most head kick knockouts, and McGregor predicted he's going to knock him out with a head kick, and then he did. So I went absolutely insane, and I was at hostel that weekend, and I started screaming, and then Matron ran in, and she's like, "What are you doing?" But I didn't care.
Yeah.
And then the third one was his loss to Dustin Poirier when he rolled his ankle and he broke a bone, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
I was in tears. So I've gone through it all with McGregor. But since I've started supporting him, which was around the Mayweather fights, I've actually only seen him win once.
Imagine where the UFC would be without Conor McGregor.
I think that's such a good point. And you know what else I've realized? But this is something I'm sure you can relate to as a commentator. What I love about the UFC, I think in the beginning stages it was around the stars. That's what their whole market was about. Their whole business plan. It was around Ronda Rousey, Conor McGregor, Chuck Liddell.
Yes.
Now, there's just stars everywhere.
Yeah.
And we have to mention Drickus. What do you think, Ray? Because I know you love UFC.
I love Still Knox.
Still Knox Boltong as well. What do you think he's going to be in, let's say, a year from now? End of the year, he has that fight with Izzy.
No, first off, as he has already, enjoy being a champion.
Yeah.
One never knows how long that will last.
Yeah.
But yes, I would love to see an Israel Adesanya fight. Do bring it to South Africa.
Please do.
And I think a Sean Strickland rematch.
Yeah.
Just to, subdue the doubters.
Because there were some people that said he lost that fight.
Yeah.
And I mean, I couldn't really see how he lost that fight.
No.
It was a close fight, but it was definitely 3-2 in my mind.
He was leading the dance.
Yeah. As a South African, I guess you have to kind of say that.
We are a little bit biased.
Do you know it was also funny? You mentioned Izzy. Did you see Pereira's knockout, right?
I did.
Against Jamal Hill, when the ref is like, he gets that low blow and he doesn't even take his eye off Jamal Hill. He's just like, and then he knocks him out. Yeah. Did you see Izzy's face after that knockout? He was like, oh my gosh. Because I think he realizes it's Drickus. And then it's probably that trilogy fights in the UFC with Pereira. And we watched the second.
Which is a scary fight.
Right. Yeah. And I tell you, out of the UFC trilogies, that's probably my favorite. Because remember the first one, Izzy was winning that fight. And then Pereira came out with that left hook. And then it was just like, in the second fight,
vice versa.
Pereira was winning. And then Izzy came out with nothing. And then he hits him with the, and I was like, oh my God, this is just the best sport in the world. So, right. We mentioned Jeppy, right? We have so many memories at Jeppy. And I emphasize it because it's played such an important role in my life. I have my blazer hanging up here and whatever. What is your favorite memory at Jeppy? Which one sticks out the most for you?
Well, there were a lot. Even the awful memories contained a bit of a learning curve.
Yeah.
But there was one moment that still sticks with me to this day. I don't know if you can recall, but it was an inter-house athletics event. And I was just planning on being a mere spectator, enjoying my cold drink and my toasted sandwich and all the treats I got from the tuck shop. I was no athlete at all, unlike yourself.
They're not good. Okay, no, carry on.
And then I was approached by one of the housemasters to run the opening race of the event, which happened to be a 3 kilometer.
Oh my word.
While I was enjoying my crisps and my Coke. And I think the race consisted of 20 participants,
Yes.
and I managed to finish dead
Yes.
last.
But you finished.
But there we go. And despite my despite the fact that I didn't contribute in any meaningful way,
Yeah.
I remember coming back to the grandstand and being treated
Embraced.
as an absolute hero, serenaded by the likes of yourselves and a few other of my close friends.
Yeah, no.
It's those finer moments that you really appreciate.
100%. And then I have to mention the reason I was laughing so hard. You mentioned the tuck shop and your snacks. So for those that obviously no one will know this, Rynhardt Kuhn was in RV house, our boarding house, and this man, I have never seen someone survive solely on a diet of blue Doritos, blue Powerade, and chicken nuggets.
I myself
Rynhardt
don't know
Kuhn.
how I survived.
For months.
Yeah.
We would go to dinner. We obviously hostel foodies. Like, I'll never forget Justin Marshall said to me one of the funniest things he ever said to me. We were busy eating steak, but it was like black, like my pants when I'm busy cutting it. And he says to me, I say to him, I wonder what this animal's last noise was.
Yeah.
And I'm like, do you think it went moo? Do you think it went woof? And he's like, it probably said, help me. And I was like, oh my God. And then Rynhardt Kuhn was sitting with no plate upstairs
I
eating.
can't tell you
his-
how many times I skipped dinner.
Yeah.
I did leave hostel, I think. When was it? Grade 11?
Yeah, it was later on.
Yeah, grade
But it
11.
had I think it was all to do with the food.
With health
I think
reasons.
your
I
mom
needed
was
to
like,
leave
oh my
hostel.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like you said, hostel was just probably my favorite experience at JP. Just
Yes.
because JP as a school is great, but JP after school, that's when the memories really
yes,
happen.
Yes.
Just give some context. I have to ask you to tell us. We were sportsmen. We never played. Well, you played. You should have played first team cricket. Yeah, you were a fantastic cricketer.
Mr. Bechet, if you're watching this, please do listen closely.
We were waiting for the call up. But anyway, so we loved sport, but our sport was after school. It wasn't official practice. So just
No.
give some context into what our after school activities look like.
So I think on Wednesdays, school ended a little bit earlier, which meant we had more time to, enjoy the afternoon with your friends.
Yeah.
Especially if you didn't go out
Yeah.
for those away fixtures.
Yeah.
And we would play hockey or football. I think in 2 teams of 2.
Yes, it was you, me, Tando, and Josh. Yeah.
And with regards to the hockey specifically, Josh and myself were not handy at all with a hockey stick.
Yes.
But yourself and Tando were.
But we somehow lost every game.
But it's all about getting into your opponent's head. And that's what especially Josh managed to do.
Very well. Very well.
Yeah.
No. That's so funny, right? And I'm so happy you mentioned that because I'm writing a book, as you know, and I was speaking about your ex and I was just reminiscing. And we went on holiday in when was it? December for your birthday. Yeah, so it was a few months ago. And we played sport pretty much the whole time. And it drew me back to those days at JP. And I'll never forget, we had a soccer fixture. We organized the soccer game and we went at it hard, slide tackling, going all out. And afterwards, we didn't speak, and that lasted like 5 minutes. Then we had a giggle and we made jokes about it. But what that reminded me of is the importance of surrounding yourself with savages, people that they want to win in life, no matter what it is, whether it's on the sports field at a stupid game lodge that no one's watching except their girlfriends that want to go home anyway. You have to win, because if you surround yourself with people like that, I saw a quote the other day that said you must surround yourself with winners so that your wins don't sound like bragging. And I was like, that takes me back, because we've all somehow gone on to achieve somewhat big things at our age, and it's we don't understand the role we've each had to play in that. And it's
No, you've been a great inspiration. I mean, this podcast is a brilliant setup. So
thanks, Cornelius.
Congratulations.
I appreciate it. So we obviously spent a lot of time on the cricket field. A lot of time.
Yeah, we did.
Grade 10, grade 9, grade 10. Grade 11, you started going a bit up and your legs.
But the rise was short-lived.
So, out of all that time we spent on the cricket field, what was your best memory?
You mentioned the Westville tour.
Yes.
That really does resonate with me.
Yeah.
there were many magical moments on that tour. We got up to a lot of mischief, certain things that I can't necessarily
Disclose.
repeat on the Faithful Chat podcast. But it was a lot of fun. Really, it was a
Yeah.
lot of fun. And it was nice seeing if you and I played in the same team. I remember when we used to bat together. There was one occasion where we had a partnership of 80 or something runs.
Yes.
And I think you contributed 70 runs at a rapid run rate.
I don't know why Tristan's laughing. It's like he doesn't believe you.
And I was simply tasked with, giving you the strike.
Seeing
And,
the
and I
ball
had a
out.
ball. I had a ball.
Yeah. No,
It's nice seeing your friends.
Speaking
excel.
of, I love you said that because when you were speaking, I think it was Northcliffe.
Mm.
Ray, you took like 7 wickets that game, and I
Yeah.
was standing at fine leg
Yeah.
thinking, "Oh my God, he's taken another one. You're gonna be home early today."
Remember that match was incredible, Chad. I think we put on 120 on
Yeah.
the board. We batted first, and it was
Yeah.
a 30-over game.
Yeah.
And I think for my first over, I went for 20 runs.
Yes.
And
I
then,
remember, and you still walked off and you grabbed your cap, and then
yes,
and then
yes.
I don't know what
And
happened.
the coach didn't like it at all.
Yeah.
And there was a heated exchange of words. And the next over, things clicked.
Was it Hillock?
It was Mr. Hillock, yes. Yeah.
Oh, that's
Fantastic
hilarious.
coach. Fantastic coach.
I love coaches that are hard on you, but they're honest and they actually
Yeah.
genuinely want
Yeah.
the best for you. And he was definitely
Yeah.
one of those coaches.
Yeah.
So, Ray, back to the commentary, right?
Hmm.
Looking back in the history of sports,
Yes.
that's a massive history.
Yeah.
What is the one fixture that sticks out for you that you feel like, I wish not even just there, but I wish I commentated it, because obviously you have that passion.
Hmm.
What's the one fixture you look back on and you're like, oh, if I was there, that just would have, not that you would have done a better job, but it would just have been like insane.
I'm not going to give you one because I feel like it'll be an injustice to all the rest.
100%.
But I'll give you a few. So the first one that comes to mind is, when was the Rumble in the Jungle?
I was thinking the same thing.
1974.
Somewhere around there.
Muhammad Ali, George Foreman, the ultimate comeback victory, calculated comeback victory.
The rope,
Yeah,
Rynhardt Kuhn.
yeah. And
they were shouting, Ali, Boomba, Oh my
yeah,
God. Yeah.
See, but fighting needs to come back to Africa. We were talking about Dricus du Plessis and Israel Adesanya.
Dana White, if you're watching this.
Yeah.
No, 100%.
Another one, Chad, is what we don't often celebrate enough. I think it happened more than 12 years ago. Is Chad Leclerc's upset against Michael Phelps
in the
in the
Olympics,
200-meter butterfly.
Yeah.
Remarkable race. And then with regards to football, it would be remiss of me not to mention a football game. Do you remember Bafana versus Mexico in the opening match of the 2010 FIFA World Cup?
Shabalala scored that first goal, and
Chad, I would have loved
to
be on the microphone then.
No, I think the whole of South Africa held its breath for a second there.
Yeah.
No, 100%. Another big one, cricket, right?
Mm-hmm.
That 4-3-8 game. I was watching a podcast the other day with Mark Barcher, and if they started that podcast, you know what I'm talking about, with Betway and during the SA20. And that game, Ray, I'll never forget my brother. Obviously, he was a bit older at the time. He was telling me that they were actually printing out newspapers in Australia saying that Australia had scored these amounts of runs and that upset, and they had to reprint the papers because South Africa pulled off a win. So that was like...
There was one moment that I'll never forget in that match.
Yeah.
And it was, I don't know who lost their wicket, but I think we needed 5 runs of 2 balls.
Yes.
And Mr. Ntini came in.
Mr. Ntini.
And he ran it down to third man. That single won us the match.
Oh, I'm so happy you mentioned that. Yeah, no, that was...
And then Mike, what's his name? Boucher. Finished it off in style.
Yeah. So Rynhardt Kuhn, we spoke about looking back in history. Let's go forward now. You obviously, there's no doubt, you have a massive commentary career ahead of you. I think anyone can see that.
Well, I hope so.
No, I think so. What is one fixture, right? When you're lying on your deathbed one day, you could say like, so happy I did that. What's that one bucket list fixture that you think like, you could commentate on, and yeah, it's the one that
Not
keeps you up at night.
not much thought required with this one.
Yeah.
The FIFA World Cup final.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
would absolutely love.
I think that's not even just the pinnacle of soccer. I think that's the pinnacle of sport.
I think so too.
Yeah,
Billions of people tuning in.
billions, literally.
Yeah.
Maybe not necessarily to SABC, but hopefully by then we'll be on.
No.
No, I love it. Just out of curiosity, who do you support in the Premier League? I know, but
I support Chelsea Football Club. I am very proud to say so. Things might not be going our way.
yes,
We might indeed be billion-pound bottle jobs, but we're still a very good watch, and we should. By the time I think the viewers at home will be watching this podcast, Chelsea should be in the FA Cup final.
yeah,
Um,
it's exciting.
yeah, we're
What
playing
do you
City
think
this
of your
afternoon.
boy?
Cole Palmer.
Oh, Rynhardt
He's an
Kuhn.
exquisite talent, Chad. I think he's ascended to the leading goal scorer in the Premier League currently.
Yeah, it's exciting. I think for English football,
Yeah.
there are some crazy up and coming
But
players.
they've fumbled a
Bellingham.
golden generation before, and I sincerely hope that it doesn't happen again.
Yeah, when I think of English football, it reminds me somewhat of South African cricket and that perfect phrase, chokers.
Yes.
I think there's something about that.
Yes.
Yeah. Obviously, chokers, I know, obviously, we've mentioned it before, but today is a JP Affi's fixture.
Yeah.
I was thinking last night, and I sent Matt a message today. Do you remember, I think it was like grade 10 or grade 11. I think it was with Muzi, and I think it was that year, where we were beating Affis for the first time. Do you remember? Like literally.
I can recall, yeah.
Please just tell everyone at home that wasn't there. How did that fixture end, and what was the scenes like on the grandstand?
We were leading by, what was it, 1 or 2 points. And there was a line out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll never forget it.
Yeah.
My memory is a bit foggy, but somehow we managed to screw up
It was
the line
Max.
out.
Max was our hooker.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Although he was at fault.
But he was a talent, right?
Yes, he was a major talent.
Big time.
And
he was trying to save time. Do you remember?
Yes.
We were trying to waste time, run the clock down, and he started tying his shoelaces, and the ref is like, turnover. They had the line out.
And then Affis went and scored.
And that guy ran. It was their left wing. I'll never forget that, right? I've never seen so many adolescent boys crying in one place. It was...
Well, it's time for revenge this afternoon. Again, hopefully by the time you're watching this, JP would have obtained that victory against Afrikaanse Hoërseunskool.
I hope our words don't come back and bite us. If not, we edit this part out.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's going to happen. I have this feeling like something magical is going to happen today. They're playing, for those that don't know, they're playing on the same field that they played on against Grey College.
Grey Bloom,
Ray, that was massive. How crazy is the story about Caden Bowie and that? Like, that was just... When Matthew was telling me that, I almost teared up because like it's just crazy to see how the school is. He's given us a why. And I think when you have a why, not just in sport but in life, you tend to get this aura about you.
Yes, like you say, aura. It gave them this aura of, you know, we can't lose this game.
Right. And
they felt unbeatable, immortal when they took on Grey Bloom.
And I must be honest, when the game was finished and that rainbow came over the scoreline, right? Like you say, some things in life are just destined, and I feel like with your commentary, with that, with the running, some things in life we don't plan. They find us, and like when that happened, it was almost like it was meant to happen.
Yeah.
They were always going to win that game.
Yeah.
You know,
and I think it was, where was it? The North-South rugby tournament.
Yeah.
Is it the North-South?
Yes, I'm not too sure, but
JP hasn't been to the North-South, and
No.
I think that was their first time. I'm under correction though, but I think that was the first time they went to the North-South tournament. And those
are real rugby schools.
Rugby schools tend to underestimate and undermine the SOTI, you know?
Yeah, especially on the rugby field. Ray, we mentioned Conor McGregor, and we had a bit of a chat about the UFC.
Yeah.
Who's your sporting icon, and why?
Rafael Nadal. To me, he's probably the most tenacious and talented tennis player there's ever been. I know Novak Djokovic is
won more titles.
the GOAT. But yeah, he played with so much heart, and he was heartless at the same time. And when he was at the peak of his powers, Chad, when he was playing tennis on a clay court, it was poetry in motion.
Yeah.
And he was, to me, he's one of the most humble sports stars there's ever been.
Yeah. 100%. So Kuhn, I like to end off every interview with 5 questions. I'm going to give some context into what you said about the second one because I absolutely love that answer. But the first one is in your mind, right? You've achieved a lot at your young age of 21. What has been your biggest accomplishment and why?
Well, I think it's important to live life in the present.
Yeah.
And although we've come a long way, it's important not to live life by constantly looking into the rearview mirror. However, I do think painting a picture since the age of 19 to millions of people probably is the biggest achievement of my life so far. And it's been one of the greatest honors of my life so far. And I think I'm simply just pursuing a passion of mine. It's exactly what you're doing too, and that's our greatest achievement.
Yeah, and I'm happy you said that. I did mention my book and whatever. And when I was thinking about what to say about you, there was one thing that stood out, right? When I was deciding to run these marathons, you will never know how much of a part you played in that because you almost showed all of us, and it's not just you, it's Tando Mjix, he's obviously doing fantastic things. Aninello is doing awesome things with his studies. Rowan, Brendan, these folks are all doing amazing things. But you in particular, commentating international games, achieving so much in such a short period of time, you almost gave me this mentality that you don't need to wait to achieve big things later on in life. Because that's later on in life is not guaranteed. As you said, the only thing that is guaranteed is today. So why wait? And when you went on and achieved all of this, I was like, I might fail, but geez, I'm gonna have a go.
Chad, it irks me when people say you need to bide your time. You're young. Be patient. There's no better time than now. And I think our youth is our greatest asset.
Big time.
And we need to make it count.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I'm hoping to achieve with this podcast. And the other day in church, our pastor said something that really rang true. He's like, a lot of people are too old and they're like, oh, I'm too old to learn. You're never too old to learn. But then he said, you're also never too young. And I feel like a lot of people our age are like, I'm going to just mess around. I'm going to enjoy my life, which you should. But I'll start taking life seriously at 25, 26. And it's people like you that just put everything into perspective. So thank you for that.
It's now where we need to start laying the groundwork for an ideal life. And you do that when you're young.
Yeah, 100%. So Ray, my second question, I like to ask, what has been your lowest moment, like the antithesis of your highest moment? And Ray messaged me last night, and I'm like, Ray, are the questions fine? Is there anything you wanted to change about today? And he's like, Chad, I'll be honest, the second question in your last segment, I don't really want that question because there hasn't been a lowest moment in my life so far. And just try to explain your mentality around that, Ray, because to me that you don't understand how much that blew me away last night.
Don't mistake it for arrogance.
No.
It's definitely not arrogance.
I think more than arrogance, it's gratitude.
Yes. Like you said, I've been incredibly lucky to be in the position that I currently am. In an industry or a job that is mostly dominated by much older, more mature men.
And what was that like? I must ask you quickly, what was it like being the young gun? Did people initially overlook you? Were you like looked past? Did that happen?
Without a doubt. And they still do. But I think, like I said, it's your biggest weapon. Your youth is definitely your biggest weapon. You need to strive to present, with regards to commentary, present it in a way that it hasn't been done before.
Yeah, I love that answer. So I was saying in the last interview, now I want to reiterate this every episode. I said to my brother John T that advice is a common commodity because everyone has one. And things that are free in life, like advice and opinions, tend to have no value, right? But in saying that, what has been the best piece of advice you've ever received? And who said it to you?
I think it was either my father or my grandfather. That's where we usually tend to receive the
Yeah.
best advice as young men.
True, 100%.
And I was told you can always learn anything from anyone, even your most formidable foe.
Yeah.
You can learn anything from anyone, but the key is to really listen.
Mm.
So yeah.
I love that, and I love the mentality that says, not everyone is right, not everyone is wrong, but everyone has something to teach you,
Mm-hmm.
good or bad, success or failure. Everyone has something to teach you, and I feel like if you live life like that, you'll always become the best version of yourself.
Just remove your blinkers and look at things objectively.
Yeah. On the opposite side of the spectrum, what has been the worst piece of advice someone's ever said to you?
I mentioned it to you a little bit earlier on. This notion that young people need to wait for their time in the sun. You don't. There's no better time than to strike right now.
That's powerful. Really, that's powerful.
Patience is a virtue. Patience is a virtue.
But I think like a lot of people don't realize that even though you want to achieve massive things young, there's still a lot of patience that goes into it. Just because you want to achieve something doesn't mean it's necessarily going to happen today.
No.
There's a lot of hard work behind the scenes, and
Yeah.
that's a message I've actually been looking for, Ray. So thank you very much for that. Last question I have for you before we end off, and I want you to look into that camera, directly into the viewer's eyes.
Yeah.
What advice do you wish to give to others?
See, when I went over the questions last night, this was arguably the toughest one to tackle.
Yeah.
But I think I read it the other day. I don't know if you've read Marcus Aurelius's Meditations.
Yeah.
It's a book that changes your life.
Stoicism, man.
Yes.
Yeah.
It really does change your life. I don't know if he mentioned it in there or if I heard it someplace else. But once you start to zoom out from the reality on the ground, then you realize that, hold on, my current challenges and the problems that I face aren't as big as I make them out to be. Once you look at it from a different lens and you look at the world, in that way, and then you start to realize that no challenge is insurmountable. No challenge at all.
And I think that starts to breed that gratitude. To me, gratitude is the most important thing in life. If you're not grateful where you are in life, you'll never be happy. And it's so funny you say that, and we can end off with this, right? But when I was running, I made a video. Hardly anyone saw it. But there was a video when I was running, and the way I used to run my marathons was I used to run 10Ks we have a 10K block. I used to run 4 times around the block. And the first time on this specific day, someone had thrown out their McDonald's chips from the night before, obviously from a big night at Sundowners. And they were just spread all across the floor. I didn't think anything of it. Came around the second time, there was nothing there. And as I was running the second time, I started to, you start to get a bit angry because you're in pain, you're running, you're like, oh, what am I doing this? Carl was not in the best space. We hadn't raised any money, and I was just becoming negative, When I came around the third time, I'd seen a man who picked up those chips and was eating it. And it put everything into perspective for me. Like, why am I complaining, So,
Obstacles are opportunities, Chad. And I think you encountered many obstacles during your run.
Back on the politics, we end off with this. I'll never forget, Ray. We had a guy in a lecture, and we were discussing South Africa. And we're like, South Africa's so messed up, and there's so many problems.
Yeah.
And this man stood up in the lecture and he's like, yeah, but where there's problems, there's opportunities. And he sat down and everyone had this moment where they're like, what just happened? But everyone knew he was right. So,
The situation is not unfixable. The situation is not unfixable. South Africa is one of the most beautiful, one of the most free countries in the world.
Yeah, and we have this mentality like, we have to go somewhere else. But
no.
Tell you something, South Africa is a beautiful country with beautiful people and a beautiful culture. So
we just need the people, the elites of this country, the political elite needs to start realizing exactly the same.
I love that. So Ray, this is going to be a bit awkward, I think, but the way I want to end off every podcast is with a prayer. It is the Faithful Chat podcast, and I have to show gratitude to God for getting me here. So Is it okay if we end off with a prayer? Is that okay with you?
We may do so.
I'll pray for us, my brother. Sweet. So God, we come to you in praise today to say thank you so much for where we are right now. We pray that you'll be with Cheppy and that they'll make history later on today. And I'm so grateful to have people around me like Rynhardt Kuhn and like technical Tristan behind the camera. We need to show gratitude toward others, and very excited to see where Rynhardt's career is going to take him, and there's no doubt that big things are going to come. We pray that you'll guide him, you'll bless him, and you'll be with everyone listening to this podcast today. Amen.
Amen.
Kuhn.
Thank you.
Thank you, my brother.
An absolute ball.
Oh, wait. And cut. How sick was that? Hello, everyone. I'm outside my church, Imagine Church, and 10 months ago, I stood at that sign. It said something a bit different. And I made a post to you guys telling you that I wanted to run 100 marathons in 100 days for my buddy Carl. And I'm happy to say we did it through God's grace. But now it's time for the next challenge. And I'm looking to run through the whole of South Africa. Capital city, in each province to capital city. And set a new Guinness World Record. I'm looking to do it this year. But for this challenge, guys, I need something from you, and I need this video to go somewhat viral because we need as much followers as possible on Instagram. And the reason for it is simple. A trip like this is extremely costly, guys, and sponsors, they don't want to sponsor if you don't have a bit of a following. We learned that through the 100 marathons. So yeah, let's make it happen, guys. Why am I doing this? I don't know. Actually, I do know. I'm looking to prove to everybody what is possible when you put God first in your life. Simple as that. So God bless all of you. Please share this video with as many people as possible. That's all I ask. And yeah, follow me if you can. If you like this message, if you feel like this is something that's going to be interesting to follow, please do give me a follow. And God bless all of you. And yeah, let's see what 2024 holds for us.
I feel